Welcome to Micro Moments and Mobile First Behavior, the final webinar in our 4-part series, 2020, The Future of Marketing. The 3 preceding webinars are now streaming at silvertech.com. I'm your host, Ian Hughes, content strategist here at Silvertech. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's get started. First, a quick mention of who we are. We are Silvertech, a digital marketing agency and technology company. We've been in the digital space since 1996. We have more than 75 crew members engaged in more than 80 active projects across a variety of industries. Our goal is to redefine how organizations understand their audience and the entire customer journey. It's a process we call Lead to Loyal. It's powered by intuitive design and a seamless sharing of data across the main marketing technology platforms, your content management system, marketing automation platform, and CRM. Here's a look at the agenda. First, we'll define micro moments and take a look at how our use of mobile devices has evolved. We'll hear from Silvertech's designers for some lessons from mobile-first user experience, UX design. Then we'll close by taking a look at AMP, mobile-first indexing, and what it means to market to the micro moment. 2 years ago, Google introduced the micro moment, a new mobile-first concept of consumer behavior. In 2017, as adults spend more than 3 hours a day consuming digital media on their mobile devices, the concept has become more relevant. So, what is a micro moment? Micro moments are moments of intent, purchase moments, research moments, and discovery moments that happen on a mobile device. During the early days of smartphone usage and adoption, it was common for consumers to complete purchases on their desktop computers. The frustration of having to pinch and zoom to read product descriptions and the difficulties of managing a shopping cart on a mobile device were not worth the hassle. Over the past 2 years, several improvements to smartphone technology and the infrastructure of the internet have made those frustrations almost obsolete. Screen sizes increased, e-commerce sites are overwhelmingly responsive, and we trust our smartphones enough to enter payment information. According to Google, micro moments are only multiplying, and people can't even remember what it was like to not be able to learn, do, or buy things when the need struck by reaching for the device in their pocket. Ahead of this presentation, I had the pleasure of interviewing Timothy Williamson, sales engineer at Progress, the company behind many mission-critical business applications, including the Sitefinity Web Content Management Platform and the Sitefinity Digital Experience Cloud. We'll hear from Tim throughout and how we can adapt our marketing to these micro moments. First, I asked him if he sees these micro moments or moments of intent increasing or decreasing as we head toward 2020. Here's what he had to say.
Sure. So, I don't see the raw volume increasing so much over the next 2 years, not like we've seen in the past. I mean, the shift has pretty much happened, right?
Yes, yeah.
But now our awareness to those moments and the results of what that awareness kind of allows us to achieve, definitely. And that's, going to increase, and that's where the real opportunity is. So, mobile devices, those are only one of the places that these micro moments are even happening. They're also happening on the desktop, in email, on social media, and still in many cases in store. So really, a unified kind of cross-channel strategy is going to pay off here.
Mary Meeker's latest Internet Trends report backs up Tim's assertion that we won't see the raw volume increase like we have in the past. Global smartphone growth is slowing, as is internet growth. But rather than indicate that micro moments and marketing to micro moments is a minor concern, I think Meeker's findings suggest that this concept has fully arrived and consumers have already adapted. Wearables, for example, have gained adoption from 12% of Americans in 2016 to 25% of Americans owning one in 2017. Wearables represent an additional touch point or place for micro moments to happen. The reality is, the web has become something we carry with us everywhere, and not something we simply browse when we're at home or at the office. And with voice search accounting for 20% of mobile queries with 95% accuracy, the speed and ease at which we can and make decisions is only increasing. It's essential that we embrace this change and alter the way we deliver content and marketing messages. Here's a key takeaway. We're heading toward an age of assistance where, for marketers, friction will mean failure and mass messages will increasingly mean move on. Google think. The shift has already happened. And if we reflect for a moment on our own purchasing or decision-making habits, we know this is a reality. Like me, you've probably researched a major purchase while in the waiting room at the dentist or in an airport. It's how we make decisions now, in these in-between moments of life. According to Google, 90% of smartphone users take steps while out and about toward long-term goals or multi-step processes. Purchasing decisions, big and small, personal and professional, are now made during oil changes, soccer practices, and intermission at dance recitals, and they are made on mobile devices. That's not to say the desktop website is dead. In fact, quite the contrary. Though Google focuses on the mobile device when discussing micromoments, Tim at Progress mentioned that micromoments are happening on desktop and in email too. I asked him to clarify. Here's what he had to say.
Sure. So, we're not just running campaigns and gathering data from mobile websites. We're also running campaigns and collecting data from our desktop applications, our desktop websites, email campaigns. Whenever someone receives an email and clicks on a link, that's a data point. That's a micro moment we can track and use that information.
It's estimated that consumers are experiencing up to 150 micromoments a day. Given the ubiquitous presence of our smartphones, it's likely that a majority of our 150 micromoments will happen on a mobile device. Before we consider how to market to the micromoment, it's important to reflect on how we actually use our mobile devices. Let's take a look at the context for mobile behavior. According to Creative Block, there are 3 major mobile contexts: bored, busy, and lost. When we're bored, we tend to visit our social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. In this context, immersive and delightful experiences geared toward a longer usage session are a great fit. When we're busy, we're moving between home and the office or out on break. We tend to check our email, calendars, and banking apps. When we're lost, literally, connectivity and battery life are big concerns. In this context, we focus on apps such as Maps, Waze, and Yelp. Mobile devices and touch interfaces mean that gestures are an important component of interaction. When creating experiences for mobile consumption, it's critical to consider that, first, gestures are invisible, so discovery is an issue. Creative Block further cautions that multi-touch gestures require two-handed operation. Think back to the busy context. Though enabling zoom through a pinch gesture might be a nice touch to the commuter traveling on the train with one hand holding on for support, it could be an inconvenience, if not quite a danger to their standing. Content shock and fatigue. In addition to how we use our mobile devices, how often we use them, and the context in which we use them, content creators and marketers have to consider content shock. In an article for Inc., Jonathan Lacoste describes content shock as the point where consumers cannot consume much more content than they already are. On the Silvertech blog, we've referred to this content saturation as content fatigue. So, how do you reach your audience in the micromoment? How do you break through the shock and fatigue? We contend that rather than creating something just because you think you should, or you think it's the right thing for your marketing department to be doing, you must make something that matters. Tell a story, connect with your audience, really relate to what they're thinking, feeling, and going through, and the context in which they are going through it. Beyond this value-based exchange, Lacoste suggests that marketers need to put more emphasis on the value of content rather than production quality, meaning that in a world of selfies and user-generated content, everything you share with consumers doesn't need runway-level production. I asked Tim for his thoughts on how marketers can break through these barriers and move toward frictionless marketing, particularly on mobile devices. Here's what he had to say.
Sure. That's going to come back to things like personalization, journey optimization, those cognitive insights that you might have been hearing about. Basically, leveraging the treasure trove of information that our websites, our mobile applications, all of those systems are generating every single day. And, when you kind of distill it down, it's still the right message at the right time, right?
Here's another key takeaway. Mobile users engage with their devices at crucial moments and only for short periods. Their experiences need to be personalized, efficient, and enjoyable in order to keep them engaged and ensure their continued use of such items. That's from the Interaction Design Foundation. Now for some lessons from mobile-first user experience, UX design. For this portion of our presentation, I worked with Silvertech's designers to gain their insight. Our partners at Thunderhead have identified a mobile expectation gap. Here's how they explain it. Not embracing mobile means brands are experiencing difficulties in grasping customer engagement. A gap has opened up between what customers expect and what brands are delivering. With the growth of mobile customers' preferences around how and when they want to be communicated with, this has also led customers to expect contact in real time or near real time. This gap in expectations equates to a hole in customer engagement, a crack where you'll lose customers and revenue. One approach to closing this gap is mobile-first user experience, UX design. UX designers have been advocating this approach for a few years now, and there are several lessons in this reverse thinking that marketers can take away. What is mobile-first design and why should we care? In a nutshell, mobile-first design means beginning with a mobile experience and enhancing it with a media query cascade that builds up to the full-size desktop version. It's essentially a backward approach to what people have become accustomed to and may seem difficult to make the mental transition at first, but it's vital that we do. Mobile-first design may seem counterintuitive for companies that want or need to add multiple plugins and features to their site. However, building a mobile-first design will have a generous impact on the traffic flow to your website due to the usability of your site. Mobile-first design provides the full potential of the mobile experience as opposed to an unpleasant byproduct of a fully developed desktop design. Silvertech designer Rafael Verana says, it prioritizes critical information on a small screen. It limits the amount of extra fluff you might want to add to make a design pretty, but is not necessary for the function you want to perform by condensing that information. What are the benefits then of taking a mobile-first approach? There are many benefits to adopting a mobile-first philosophy, but two of the more important ones are 1. Cleaner, more functional design, and 2. Faster load times. Cleaner design. Delivering content in a mobile-first method will assure you are not overloading your website with unnecessary information. It allows you to focus on more important content, and the result is a cleaner design. How many times have you added content to a page that you thought was absolutely necessary because simply you had space on the page for it? Just because you can fit a few extra links in the header or an extra call to action doesn't necessarily mean you should. White space is your friend. When you begin with the smallest screen resolution, you find yourself focusing on the most important information. The end result is a more minimal desktop version that's easier to navigate, less distracting, and more aesthetically pleasing. Faster load times. Studies show that people expect pages to load in 2 seconds or less, so we need to be smarter with how we're loading content. There are many things that can be done to make your site more efficient, from loading device-specific imagery to serving device-necessary JavaScript. Images that are hidden using display none are still downloaded by web browsers. To avoid this, use media queries to load what is necessary. Optimizing for performance will ensure better usability. This approach will make for a better foundation for any website because of all the different devices that need to be considered. Silvertech's designer Doug Flanagan says, in theory, if you can solve problems in that space, the transition to desktop should be easier and appear more natural. It's easier to build a website up rather than watering it down to fit a smaller screen. Therefore, your mobile web design should have as much thought put into it as your desktop design would have. If the mobile user can't navigate through your site quickly enough, they will lose interest and move on. So it's a crucial thing to do to attract the viewer with clean and user-friendly design right off the bat. We all know by now that responsive design is the way to go. People are browsing the web on their phones and tablets more and more, going to their desktops less and less. So it makes sense that we take a mobile-first approach when planning our websites, including content design and development. I asked Tim at Progress for his thoughts on taking a mobile-first approach to website design and the customer journey. He brings up a very important point to consider.
Well, many organizations, they've already adopted a mobile-first approach, and they're seeing success, right? I mean, increased engagement, conversion rates, those sorts of things. By putting something first, though, everything else, kind of by definition, isn't first, right?
Sure.
And it needs to be about the experience. So I realize that kind of makes things a little bit more ambiguous, but the companies that are really dominating digital, so to speak, that's what they're doing.
To support Tim's point, here's a key takeaway from Thunderhead. It's not about mobile first, which can become mobile only, but it's about mobile being the glue which connects your customers with all of your brand's touch points. Let's now conclude with a discussion of the implications of accelerated mobile pages, AMP, and mobile-first indexing. What is AMP? You may have noticed the logo, and it's very likely that you've clicked through to a page powered by AMP. It's an open-source initiative aiming to make the web better for all. The project enables the creation of websites and ads that are consistently fast, beautiful, and high-performing across devices and distribution platforms. Search Engine Land describes it as a new framework for creating mobile web pages with 3 basic parts: AMP HTML, AMP JavaScript, a JavaScript framework for resource handling and asynchronous loading, and AMP CDN, an optimized content delivery network. Essentially, this initiative prioritizes the user experience on a mobile device in styling and functionality over anything else. Sitefinity 10.1 offers support for accelerated mobile pages, AMP, so I asked Tim for his help explaining the initiative further.
Well, AMP is awesome. I mean, it's fast. It shows up higher in search results currently, and generally it's just a better experience. When I'm searching for things, I personally tend to visit pages with that little AMP logo first. And I'm pretty sure that some social networks are redirecting AMP to AMP whenever possible. Twitter, for example, I read one time that they point users to AMP content whenever they're browsing those moments. Actually, I'd be willing to bet money that there are folks who, without even knowing it, only see AMP content on their mobile device. And kind of circling back to Sitefinity, I said AMP is awesome, and it's becoming more and more important to marketers. And things like that, they just tend to get incorporated into the product.
To further signal its focus on the micro moment and the mobile user experience, Google announced in November 2016 that it was beginning experiments in mobile-first indexing. Google had previously evaluated the desktop website for relevance in ranking search results, and currently, as far as we know, it still does. This practice, however, they found is not always optimal for the mobile user. Desktop versions of sites can sometimes contain more content than the mobile version, and if the mobile user is looking for that particular piece of content, the search engine has failed to deliver the most relevant result given the context of the search. We'll hear from Tim one last time as he further clarifies mobile-first indexing and what it means for how organizations look at their mobile presence.
So this one's kind of a long answer, I suppose. Before the push for responsive, it was really common for organizations to create those mobile-optimized versions of their site. And unfortunately, in that particular context, mobile optimized was usually code for less stuff than on desktop. And the problem was that search engines were indexing sites. They were indexing the desktop versions and then offering those up as options to someone on a mobile device. When the visitor clicked, they'd get redirected to that mobile page, and it potentially didn't have any of the information that they were looking for. So it was a lose for the search engine, it was a lose for the organization, and it was a lose for, most importantly, the visitor. So I guess my point is that all of the pieces play a part here. The mobile site is important, the desktop site has always been important, and both will continue that importantness into the future.
Excellent. UX designers have shifted their thinking, and marketers should too. Oftentimes now, the redesign of a website starts on the mobile device, and the desktop experience is the secondary consideration. As we optimize our content, marketers need to make the very same shift. Give primacy to the mobile experience, as it's increasingly the only experience new consumers will have of our brands and our content. Taking this approach will yield a cleaner, more streamlined design that will load much faster for the end user, and ultimately rank you higher in search results and provide a better experience, win you more customers, and connect you better with your audience. Silvertech's client base includes many industries such as banks, healthcare, travel sites, and higher education, and more, which is why we support mobile-first design. Mobile-first design is great for industries like banking and healthcare because it facilitates solutions in chaotic and sometimes stressful environments, says Rafael Verana. Since you have a condensed and focused arrangement of features, you can more easily find functions in a context where the speed is critical or it's not easy to think straight, i.e. an emergency room, needing to transfer money to cover a tab, etc. As beneficial as the concept of mobile-first design may be, it's not always achievable. However, this will hopefully change with time as mobile becomes even more prevalent, and hopefully companies will consider the impact mobile-first design could have on the success of their websites and overall digital presence. And that concludes today's presentation. A big thank you to Tim from Progress. If you'd like to learn more about the Sitefinity Digital Experience Cloud, you can do so on our website. I hope you found our discussion valuable. On behalf of Silvertech, I'm Ian Hughes. Thank you so much for joining us today.